Thanks, Kathy. First, I'd like to start off by thanking Kathy for what a great job she does. She says she runs the council, so it's amazing the work that she does to keep everybody kind of engaged and to get all of this great work pumped out that we do. And also to say that I really enjoy working with the Smart Card Alliance. I was trying to think back at how long I've been involved with the Smart Card Alliance, and I looked on my computer and figured out my first meeting was in 2005, so it's been 9 years since that I've been involved with the Smart Card Alliance, mostly with the Payments Council, but also with the NFC Council. For those of you who are not familiar with Capgemini, is a large systems integration and consulting firm, over 100,000 employees worldwide, headquartered in Paris. We have about 20,000 people around the world that are in the financial services unit, which is the unit I'm in. I'm one of the leaders of our cards and payments practice in North America, although I do work outside North America as well. And Capgemini is really big in cards and payments. We have more than 5,000 people in their cards and payments and mobile payments domain. So it's a very important area for us. So this white paper, and I have the actual white paper right here that Kathy was talking about. I'm going to go through some of that just to give you at a very high level what was in that white paper. But I'll start by saying this is a piece of Capgemini research. So this is just looking at the US, at the trends in non-cash payments over the past 10 years. And this is just by number of transactions, not by volume or value of transactions. That debit cards are now huge, growing really, really quickly, and credit cards, although they had kind of a downturn for a while, have picked up growth as well. And card payments, both credit and debit, are now more than 2/3 of the non-cash transactions in the US are card payments. And the number of checks continues to decline, although something just sort of funny about checks is remote deposit capture, which is the thing where you take a picture of the check with your phone. It's sort of breathed new life into checks, paradoxically. I don't think that's really what we intended, but so it's going to take a long time to totally get rid of checks. I can tell you that right now. We see the line there for ACH, which is interesting because I'm going to talk about ACH as one of the technologies that's now being used at the point of sale. ACH was originally conceived as a way for B2B payments, electronic payments, but it's a completely different network from debit and credit card networks, and it's not real time. It does overnight clearing and settlement. It's not guaranteed funds, so there's a lot of disadvantages to ACH. But it is cheaper than credit or debit card interchange. And then prepaid cards, as you probably know, have become a really big business and used for all sorts of different applications, both as things like gift cards for closed loop, but then open loop general purpose reloadable cards for like payroll, or almost treated as light checking accounts. So it's a checking account without the checks, and it's much less expensive for banks to service customers at the lower end of the spectrum. So there are like 10 different categories of technologies that we looked at in this white paper. And I'll just briefly touch on each one, but in the white paper we describe what the technology is, some of the pros and cons, and how it is a good thing or a bad thing for different stakeholders like merchants, consumers, and then also the impact on privacy, security, and also the impact moving to EMV would have on each one of these. So the first one is biometric. And there are a lot of different approaches. It goes back probably 10 years. There was a company called Pay by Touch where you would pay with your fingerprint. And actually that was backed by ACH because the sales pitch there from the Pay by Touch people was to lower the cost of transactions to the merchants. And then I guess it was sort of slick. You didn't have to have a card or anything with you at all. You just use your fingerprint. But eventually that didn't really catch on. It was actually slower than using a card. So while it seemed like a good idea, the number of steps and just the way, I guess the technology really wasn't ready for prime time at that point. These days there's a lot of new ways that biometrics could be done either with a phone, without a phone, using your fingerprint, your iris scan. And that can be backed by anything. It could be backed by cards or by ACH. Now, Bitcoin is something that's totally different. Anybody in the audience own a Bitcoin? No? Bitcoins, in my personal opinion, I was interviewed by a reporter on this topic a couple of months ago, so I did quite a bit of reading up on it ahead of time. I think that virtual currency is going to happen at some point. It may or may not be Bitcoin itself. The interesting thing about Bitcoin, it's been smeared, I guess, by a couple of unfortunate things. One was it's kind of rumored to be an anonymous currency like cash, but it is not totally anonymous. So if you're trying to go after criminals, the FBI or Secret Service, whoever, they actually can find out who originated the Bitcoins. So it's not as anonymous as cash. But there was a website called Silk Road, I believe, where they were selling drugs, I guess. I don't know what else they were selling, but all sorts of illicit things on that, and they were using Bitcoin. So the website was shut down, and that kind of gave a black eye to Bitcoin as like, is this just to buy drugs and pornography, or are we going to do something else with this? And then also, it is not backed by any government or any currency. So the idea is that it's a totally democratized currency. It's not subject to manipulation by a government. And that could end up being a good thing, but it has also, since it's not regulated, has been resulted in rampant speculation where the price of Bitcoins has been pushed up through the stratosphere, which is, it's not really a sustainable situation. But if you think about virtual currency in the long run, it could really be a wonderful thing for world economies, especially if you think about, say, artisans in other countries who want to sell their goods across borders. Right now, it's very difficult. There are a few markets that have been set up to accomplish that. There's things like PayPal, which is a great solution, but a virtual currency would be ideal in that case. So I do think virtual currencies will survive. There was a congressional hearing about Bitcoin a couple months ago, and actually Congress was a little bit complimentary of Bitcoin. Everyone kind of expected that it would be outlawed or something, and instead it was complimentary, and that gave a little more shot in the arm to Bitcoin for the time being. Then we have NFC, which, as we all know, is the contactless close proximity from phones, NFC-equipped phones speaking to POS or other posters and things like that, with wallets that can store multiple cards. Then both dongles and tablet POS. So those are both examples of payment acceptance instead of making a payment. And they both work in similar ways. Setup is a little bit different. With a tablet, you can do some fancier things than with a handset. But these are both enabled, with companies like Square. Their innovation was to look beyond traditional merchants and apply new pricing and risk management algorithms to make it cost-effective and profitable business out of micro merchants like flea markets. I've seen a lot of taxi drivers using Square. So it's a very slick user interface, very easy to set up, very low upfront costs. Their actual transaction costs are probably higher than with traditional acquirers for larger merchants. But it's worthwhile to be able to accept card payments for some of those merchants where they couldn't do any of that before. And then with the tablet POS, it's the same idea, but they're doing some other things like using geofencing, showing your picture, the consumer's photograph on the tablet, doing some interesting things that integrate the tablet into the merchant's industry. So things like order ahead, which is another category that we're looking at. And then this is the second page of technology. So geolocation purchasing, it uses a variety of techniques, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, to identify when you, the consumer, have entered the premise. with your cell phone on your person, but you don't have to pull the cell phone out of your pocket necessarily. So that makes for a whole new kind of user experience. If you can just imagine yourself walking into Starbucks and then just picking up your coffee and leaving because you've pre-ordered and the payment's already been made, so there's no queuing, there's line busting, there's a great user experience there. The 2D barcodes we've heard a lot, which is I would call that a poor man's NFC because it's an easy way to do something that's NFC-like, but it's using a lowest common denominator phone. You don't have to have the NFC or the contactless readers. You can use optical scanners. And there's a comment here, the solution provides merchants better control over fees. The reason for that comment is that in some of the early implementations, like with Starbucks, they're using the Starbucks prepaid or loyalty card. So a lot of times merchants would back the barcode with a prepaid card or a private label card, as it were, which would lower their transaction fees. If you were putting credit cards, debit cards behind there, actually your transaction fees would be higher because it would be treated as a card not present transaction by the networks. Now, ACH, as I mentioned before, was originally intended, whenever it was first invented 50 years ago, as a B2B thing with overnight clearing of electronic transactions, eliminating paper checks from the clearing system. And over time, it's become, if you pay your bills online, it's usually done with ACH. And the United States banking system has done a very interesting thing to itself, which is that we have 3 or 4 different ways to pay, and they all have different prices. So this has given merchants and entrepreneurs the opportunity to game the payment system and figure out ways to lower their transaction fees. So ACH, even after Durbin had lowered the price, the interchange on debit, ACH is still much less expensive. It's usually a flat fee between 10 and 15 cents per transaction. So if you are a grocery store, you would love that ability to drive as many of your consumers as possible to using an ACH-backed transaction. The disadvantage for a consumer is, first of all, you're not getting your loyalty points that you would get on your credit cards, but you lack a lot of the protections that we have with our card systems for disputes and chargebacks, or for stolen. If somebody stole your ACH-backed card, you don't have the instant protection that you're accustomed to with credit and debit cards. And the money would actually be gone from your account. You might have to wait as long as 90 days, I think, is the limit, because it's covered under Reg E, different regulation than credit and debit cards, where the dispute doesn't have to be resolved as quickly. And also, depending on how long you waited before you reported your lost ACH card, you could be up for unlimited liability. It's not limited to the $50 like it is with credit and debit cards. However, it is a lower transaction fee. There are some disadvantages to the merchant as well. It's not guaranteed funds. So even if there are services you can buy to check, it's almost like a check guarantee service that looks into your account to see, does this person have enough money to cover this transaction? But there's no hold put on the funds. And you could go and spend that money later on the same day, so that overnight when we're clearing, the money's not there. So it's not guaranteed funds. All of these are reasons why it's a less expensive transaction. And then we have remote ordering, which we've talked quite a bit about in the last couple of days. One of the most prominent examples is Jamba Juice and PayPal, but there are a lot of other startups that are looking at the same area, and they're listed in the white paper. So the idea there is that you've pre-registered with some restaurant or quick service or place that you often visit, and you put in your order ahead of time, and so what time you're going to be, a window of time that you'll be at the shop, and you pay. And so when you walk in, you just pick up your order and leave. So this is really great user experience. It saves you a lot of time and frustration from having to stand in line. It's also very good for the merchant, for the restaurant, because they can smooth the demand spikes, improve their return on assets, and it's another method for them to take orders, so possible revenue improvement. And then some other ones, Bluetooth-enabled mobile payments, which is new, Bluetooth low energy. And the last one, which is really kind of out there. But apparently this has been pioneered over the past 10 years or so. It's a magnetic induction technology, which apparently, believe it or not, allows you to hold your phone over a magstripe terminal and somehow transmit the magstripes through the air. So that's an interesting thought. I don't know really why we would want to go there, but I guess it's tying the old with the new.
Debbie, could you wrap?
Oh, no, one more. I guess I talked all about ACH at the point of sale, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an example of how this has been used. So we have some very specific ones here. Target Red Card has a debit card. They call it a debit card, but it's an ACH card, which they give a discount. Shell Saver Card. So they're doing different kinds of promotions. And again, this is to drive, it's an effort to drive consumers to use these ACH cards because it's so much less expensive for the merchant. Okay, and then the impact on EMV. So NFC, as you probably know, the current implementation of NFC is using magstripe data because it's consistent with the current implementation of contactless in the US. So that would have to migrate eventually over to the EMV version of contactless, and that has to be timed with the migration of the terminals. So at some point while we're in this transition period, depending whether it's done before or after the liability shift, there could be some result on liability to the merchant. The mobile card and the tablet POS, almost all of those, the dongles that you're putting into the outlet in the phone, these are almost all magstripe, so they would all have to be upgraded to chip readers of some kind, either contact or contactless. The other ones have no EMV impact because they're actually considered card-not-present transactions. They're actually e-commerce transactions, so the geolocation, the 2D barcodes, and the remote ordering are done ahead of time in the cloud as like an e-commerce card-not-present transaction, so no EMV impact there. Now ACH, we have here no EMV. I guess theoretically you could equip an ACH card with an EMV chip, but it's a totally different network. It's not card not present. It would be a totally different thing. So no EMV impact there.